Click the subscribe button below to receive new videos as we release them. Hit the thumbs up button so others can find our content. For more information, visit thejerusalemassembly.org.
This second discourse is going to deal with the nature of James, the brother of Jesus, the second brother. First of all, I'd like to add something that I felt by analyzing the various attributes of the man James. I want to do this toward the last year of his life, the concept that he had as he monitored and observed his brother Jesus. I am sure that he was always concerned, most of it, in watching after the family as Jesus had traveled to become more conscious of his plan, of his journey that he had to do the job of his Father God. I think the ages were not that much different, 5 years apart. I think James had more of the experience of the life, the hardships, seeing his brothers and sisters grow up, and various other aspects in ensuring that there was safety, protection, of course, and above all things, the means to survive the family. After all, Jesus had a large family. So I think that even though they have separate raising, or in this case, maturity, I think that James held the one with the most one. I think quite often must have brought up to the attention of Jesus that, life was having a little difference. Maybe their thoughts, their philosophy, the various way they look at life were quite different, but when it came down to earth, they didn't compromise at being brothers. Their love among those two was definitely strong. And I'm sure they took various time to have some discussions about what would have been not right, but what would have been practical. I'm sure Jesus emphasized the need to love and to forgive, to attend to gratitude, to observe the needs of the poor. In contrast, I'm sure James would take a moment or two and remind him that the family has some issues also. There was time, I'm sure, that it also they discussed other things. In the case, for example, of James, nowhere we find out whether he had family, children, but we can see through the scriptures that their brothers did, and so their sisters. Still, my main point on this one is that they had a cordial relationship, a strong bonding. They need to agree on every single item, but each one had to be able to expose their personal feelings about how they view things in life, or call the political arena in which they lived. There was a lot of disenchantment during that period of the temple. Like I said, mentioned it, there was all kinds of organizations and all kinds of different parties with different ideology. Neither of them is right. And I think this is the importance in James. James saw that there was an urgency, absolutely, that he would agree with his brother Jesus. There was a need to observe the needed of those that had needs. And of course, I'm sure he also, in some manner, agreed that it was important to maintain the law, because that would allow the people to follow what God directed would have been, but it would bring some spiritual disciplines that I'm unsure during that time was a havoc. In other words, it was a lot of big problems going on. So the dignity, the integrity, and the purity that all that was established, whether it had happened after the wilderness and coming into the land, was slowly being disintegrated. And therefore, this is what I think, that the two must quite often sat down somewhere alongside the side of the hill and recorded that, which I later on will also bring about in another article. Anyway, so it is my opinion, simply my opinion, that they had a bond, a very strong bond, not only emotional, brotherly, but I think they did have a lot of agreements in the spiritual aspect, not only the law, but what each one thought, what would be the closest to become to God. And this is also, we find it later on, after Jesus' crucifixion, I think it had a major impact in James, and he saw the truth element of what Jesus was trying to do all alone. And it made a substantial difference in the rest of life of James. And it brought about also his demise and his death. Peace to you all.